Carmel Brown, licensed clinical professional counselor, and I just want to give you a quick tip on parenting today. You know, many of us have been parents for a long time. Myself, I've been a parent for 2.5 decades. Yes, 2.5 decades, and I have the gray hairs to prove it. However, I just wanted to mention emotions with regards to children. Very often, parents forget that making sure our kids have the best, most of us have worked really hard to acquire and maintain the careers that we have and the financial status, ensuring that our kids are involved in all of the best extracurricular activities, and that they have cars when they're old enough to drive, they have money when they need it, they wear the best garments, and so on and so forth. We are a society of providers. And not only are we a society of providers, because our parents were providers as well, but we are a society of providers that make sure our kids have the absolute best. I just want to make sure that we remember that ensuring that our children have the best with regards to their emotional status and emotional well-being is just as important. Most often, parents have the absolute best intentions, but I want to caution you, because if you grew up in a home in which your parents were not emotionally available or emotionally supportive, it's highly likely that you're going to be at risk for being the same with your children. Most often, when parents are not emotionally available or supportive, they don't realize that they're not. They think they are giving their kids the absolute best. And I work with a lot of parents in therapy that cannot understand why the children are having the experiences that they're having or behaving the way that they are when they've given them everything under the sun. Now, there is no way to be a perfect parent. I sure haven't been a perfect parent. I've been a great parent, not a perfect parent. My children are not perfect kids. They're great kids, they're not perfect kids. They've made plenty of mistakes, just as I have. It's important that we know that parenting involves much more than just making sure that our kids have the best of everything. Making sure that our kids have the emotional support and that we are emotionally available is critical in ensuring that they become healthy and emotionally intelligent adults, and that they have healthy relationships when they become adults. Well, if you don't know what that means, it is important that you get with a therapist that can help you to navigate that and to determine if there is room for improvement with regards to your efforts in providing that emotional support and availability for your children. Making sure that our children feel heard, they feel supported, and that they believe, if nowhere else, that at home, their thoughts, their feelings, and their voice is being heard, and that it matters. Very often, if children don't know how to verbalize what they are experiencing emotionally or internally, you might see some behaviors that demonstrate what might be going on internally. Temper tantrums. Sometimes what we refer to with our teenagers as bad attitudes. None of our teenagers have bad attitudes, right? Mine sure have. But it's important that we understand that most of that behavior is indicative of something else going on internally. And very often, it is an emotional struggle that they're dealing with internally. And it's critical that we help them learn how to navigate that and to understand what might be going on. So it's important that we start that when our children are very young, but let's say that we missed the mark. Let's say that we didn't get that as children ourselves, and we didn't realize until our children were teenagers or even young adults that at some point we realized that, oh, this is something that's lacking. my kids and myself are having a difficult time identifying and verbalizing or expressing their emotions with regards to things that are overwhelming or distressing for them. Most people don't struggle with verbalizing or expressing pleasant feelings, moods, or thoughts, right? You know, when you're happy, you're excited and such. But when people are frustrated, when they're confused, when they're sad, when they're angry, when they're agitated, when they're feeling defeated, all of those things, most often people have a difficult time, especially children, identifying what's going on and figuring out what to do with those thoughts and those emotions. I have a couple of suggestions for you. There were a few sayings or phrases, and I could obviously come up with many that some of us heard as children, such as, "If you keep crying, I'll give you something to cry about," or "There's nothing wrong with you. Stop crying," and so on and so forth. Crying is an outward expression of something that's going on internally. And whatever it is, typically it's overwhelming. Some people cry when they're overwhelmingly happy or excited. Some people cry when they're overwhelmingly afraid. And some cry when they're overwhelmingly sad. It's important that we avoid taking our children's outbursts and tantrums personal. So instead of saying, "If you keep crying, I'll give you something to cry about," saying something along the lines of, "Help me to understand what you're thinking and what you're feeling. Are you sad?" And then figuring out or giving them the opportunity to process and verbalize whether or not they're sad. Are you mad or angry? Giving them an opportunity to process that question and thoroughly answer that question. And in general, asking your children to help you to understand what they're feeling right now. And that can be as simple as saying, "Help me to understand what you're feeling right now. There must be something going on that doesn't feel good for you." Most likely, if your parents were not emotionally available for you, then no one was emotionally available for them. So it's important to not find yourself holding a grudge or becoming resentful, because that is an aspect of your childhood that you missed out on. What's important is that you recover from that first and foremost, and you can do that in therapy, and that you prevent the same cycle from repeating. And it's never too late. If your kids were middle school or high school or even young adults before you realized that this was an aspect of your children's childhood experience and your parenting experience, it is important that you take action. Don't ignore it. Don't think it's too late, because your children still have a lifetime, an entire adulthood of relationships that they need to nurture and maintain. There's so many different tools out there that you can help your children learn to identify and process and express emotions. And you have to start out with really the most basic things. One of the tools that I use with some of my kids in therapy is this game. It's the jar of feelings. It's called Feelings in a Jar, okay? And in this jar, you get an entire stack of cards. And with each card, you get an entire feeling on it. Like this one is respectful, and I'll just shuffle through. Insensitive. Hopeless. And the list goes on and on and on. There's so many different emotions in this jar. Desperate, vengeful, self-reliant, spirited, jubilant, delighted. There's so many cards here in this deck, and each card has a different emotion. And what I find is that children and adults that struggle with emotions really benefit from just learning what each of these feelings are. So basically, they increase their base or their arsenal of feelings that they can verbalize. Because sometimes people feel things but don't know exactly what they're feeling. And it's not just children, adults experience this as well. So whether it's you get the feelings in a jar game, or you go online or go to your Merriam or Webster's dictionary, Oxford dictionary, or whatever, and you pick your own feelings and make your own cards. And I would imagine there's plenty of resources online that you could utilize. Learning different emotions, what they mean, and being able to verbalize or express them so that other people can understand your moment-to-moment emotional experience, and so that you understand your moment-to-moment emotional experience is very important. Feelings matter. Your feelings matter. And it's important that you allow other people in so they understand what your emotional experience is with them. You've got to do this if you want to be emotionally intelligent and if you want to raise emotionally intelligent children. It's never too late. So let's get to talking about feelings. Good luck. See you soon.